So it's amazing what these 12-year-olds tell you at church, all these jokes. Anyway, what are you guys learning in Sunday school? Anyway, subscribe and like our YouTube page, the Florida Daily Show. Also, everything at floridadaily.com. Lindsay Randall, and of course, Jennifer Green, Liberty Partners LLC, puts out a weekly update, which we use all the time at Florida Daily. And I like a lot what's going on. But Jennifer knows the score. Lindsay, and we're probably, as they say, we're touching the surface on the whole property tax. I see a lot of good, and I still see a lot of where I got a lot of questions that I don't know if I really necessarily want Tallahassee to dictate in an amendment, and we've got to force some spending control on local cities. By the way, Jennifer Green, with all of the verbiage, this amendment, in my view, is going to be short. People ain't going to be reading this amendment, are they? I mean, it's going to be like 100 words on the surface, right?
Well, it still has the title and the summary, which is typically 15 words for the title and 75 words maximum for the summary. But if the companion bill that's going with it, the governor signs it, the legislature is allowing the title and the summary to exceed those amounts, which is ironic. It's kind of interesting. Maybe it needs more explanation, but I think people are going to read the title and summary. They're not going to read the whole constitutional amendment. And it isn't long, candidly. The amendment isn't long.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the stuff that they were talking about putting on there, I'm like, all this on a flipping amendment. By the way, we're jumping around today on this one. Lindsay, there is a 5-year residency requirement. I like it and I don't like it. That's like saying, because if I'm not mistaken, Jennifer, if you move to Florida, you can get the tax exemption pretty quickly, the $25,000 one, right?
Yeah, you're not treated any different. You get it as it was assessed in the January of the year.
But Lindsay, on this one, unless you've lived in the state, you can't benefit from the tax cut for 5 years and grandfathered in and everything else. And how do you decide all of that? That's like saying, hey, I've been paying the IRS my taxes every year, but somehow everybody else gets a tax break, but I don't. So I've got to wait until after 5 years. Lindsay, Jennifer and I were talking about this on the radio show. I'm not convinced the 5-year residency requirement is going to pass the muster test here. I think it's a little off.
Yeah, I think that I agree. I think that's a little stringent. I don't really like that. I like incentivizing people to stay here in the state of Florida. I also think that it is kind of, if you become a resident here, how long should you have to wait to take advantage of this? Right. I don't know that 5 years is, I could see even like a year, maybe 2 years, but 5 years is significant. And then and this is just a question, Jennifer, you may know this. So does that mean you have to change you have to homestead here and you have to have your ID here, your driver's license here?
Oh yeah, it's the amendment only affects homesteaded properties. So you'd have to move here, claim homestead. on what you purchased. But what is a problem is you've got two similarly situated taxpayers. You have homeowners of their primary residence that have homestead property. And because of what they did before they bought that property, you're treating them differently. And that is from a tax standpoint, you can't treat same taxpayers differently. It's going to be tough.
Yeah. And I always remind everybody that there are more non-homesteaded property owners. I understand there are investors, Jennifer. I understand there's some out of the country, out of state. But I know some that I go to church with, and it's just a rental income. They're on fixed income. They took away some of their savings, and they're getting a pretty good rate of return. But yet they're using for rental property, but no one's looking out for them. And as I say, we're jumping around. There is this new thing I got to tell you what's been going on that we talked about on the radio show earlier today. And they're talking about a property tax cut, which is not over 5 to 10 years. I got to tell you something. It's pretty sexy politically because if it passes, you'll get the tax exemption, the $50,000, and then it goes higher within a year. And then you get the full $250,000 within a year and a half, 2 years. I got to tell you something that's very quick. That sells with a lot of voters. We can get into about the cutting services or not. But what I find kind of interesting, Jennifer, it kind of defeats the purpose, is that there's this argument that I've been reading in some of the publications. We've covered it here on floridadaily.com, that there's what's called the non-ad valorem tax, user fees, fire assessment, roads and bridges. They can put a transportation tax, the hike of a sales tax, user fees. Do you think it's possible that we could see higher user fees, which I think is going to irritate taxpayers cutting out these checks once a month? Do you think that the user fees could actually go higher than what some people were paying in their property taxes?
I don't know if they could go higher than what they're paying their property taxes. I think you're going to see maybe that they go higher some percentage for homestead owners, but it, I think it's going to depend on where it's shifted to. I mean, it is a dangerous game to play for local governments to say, hair on fire, run around Chicken Little, here's what's going to happen. I don't know that threatening taxpayers with we're going to charge you more is the best solution. A better way to approach it is to say, we're going to have to figure out how do we continue to fund the services that you all need and not raise any taxes or fees.
Lindsay, I don't want to use the word scam. I just use the word scheme or talking point. How about that? So your kids, your two daughters, very successful in charter schools, which you oversee as well. They do a lot of not just so much in school, but they do like county and sport league activities, right? Like soccer, lacrosse. I mean, they do sports, correct?
One. Yes. One.
Okay. So here's the new talking point. So I had Jason Redman on my radio show this morning, and he is out of Vero Beach. He is a Florida sports analyst for CBS News and with iHeartRadio. And I told him about the new scheme that's being talked about. Oh, if the property tax goes through, Lindsay, your kids, we're not talking at public schools. We're talking like summer leagues that the city and county puts on, that the girls lacrosse and boys soccer and girls soccer and the softball and the baseball fields, that your fees are going to go up, the user fees, because we're not going to be able to maintain or provide maintenance on the ball fields anymore. It gets better. And, we may have to privatize doing all of these productions. We may have to, yeah. And Jason goes, that's complete BS because the fees have already been going up no matter what. So he goes, parents are laughing at it right now. But what I'm saying is to somebody like you who has children here, Lindsay, that now they're saying, hey, we may have to privatize some of these ball fields. You know what they've done with many counties, Lindsay? The golf courses suck so bad that the city said we're still going to own them, but we're going to privatize them. And then next thing you know, the rates really didn't go up and the golf courses are immaculate.
Yes. Imagine that. Imagine the free market and private enterprise coming in and making something better. Like how is this even possible?
Right.
I mean, so I brought this up on your show the other day, Ed, that so our school has been we've been trying to work with the city and the district for years, for 5 years now, to try to take over and oversee a park that's half a mile from our school. They have baseball fields. We said, listen, we will come in with our money. We will raise private funds and we will fix it. We'll maintain it. We'll make sure we'll have this partnership where we'll use it on these hours and these days. And then the community, the rest of the community will have a nice park to use the other times. And it has gotten nowhere. Meanwhile, it's just been red tape after red tape after red tape. And these are dilapidated old facilities that no one is taking care of. So I just don't buy it. I don't buy the fear mongering. It's frankly just tiresome. I'm like, how idiotic do you think we are?
Well,
so it just is so exhausting to me.
Jennifer,
right.
Jennifer, Lindsay does have a point. I mean, I think there are levels, and I think we need to determine, and I understand a lot of worthwhile events, but we need to determine, okay, what is essential? Like so many things were not essential during COVID. What is a priority and what do we determine essential with government services? I don't know if I want the state telling me that. That's like the feds telling Florida what to do this. But I will admit there's some low-hanging fruit, like Lindsay just mentioned. Really, like we're gonna fee everybody to death that the ball fields aren't gonna remain immaculate. But there is some concern, I think, and is there a legitimate concern, depending on what county maybe you live in here, Jennifer, that fire, like you got these mayors that are saying, hey, the timing of having the fire and police coming out may slow down and this may hurt fire and police. Is that a legitimate discussion to have with this property tax debate?
I mean, it probably is a good discussion to have, but if you look at the real words on the paper, the black and white words, they're guardrails on what it can be or must be used for. And, law enforcement, first responders, all of that, they enumerate that in the amendment. I mean, there's several things, and I think there's a provision no one's talking about, but it's also retirement benefits, the funding of retirement benefits for local government employees. That's in there as well. That's being protected.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I get a lot of mayors telling me that they still can't fully fund it through the property
That's
tax.
right. Yeah.
So
that's right.
they've got to find other. I know they've got. I mean,
if the state of Florida can cut their budget for the past 3 years in a row, I mean, I think this year was $600 million that they cut. How in the world can these cities not cut things? There's got to be waste, fraud, and abuse in any municipality. So I just don't buy it. I think that they want to keep they want to keep the money. They want to keep doing what they're doing and not make any changes. And sorry, that's just not the day and age that we live in.
We had a story that came out this week. You know, Tax Watch puts out what's called a turkey list. For those of you out there, that's considered a pork barrel spending list. And they put out some interesting objectives of like 621 projects, goes into hundreds of millions, some cases a couple of billion. And then they talk about how sometimes that we question if it doesn't go through the right RPF process or as far as the bidding process, they say, and I'm all open for that. But what they brought out and what we covered here at this story, Jennifer, was that this is an interesting debate, which I'm also open for on the property tax debate, state versus local control, local autonomy. Who should have the final say? I like local control. And the question comes about that now we've got state legislators. And by the way, everything's run by my party, the Republicans. I know you are, and Lindsay is one as well. But they're telling them, you got to tighten your belt at the local level. But what they're doing in Tallahassee and what we put in our article is that these member projects are increasing every year. So, you know, it's like we're telling you to guard your, you know, how much you spend. When it comes to us, we're going to do our own things. Kind of, some people call it a little bit hypocritical.
Okay, very hypocritical, because what Lindsay just said, our overall budget, the spending authority the legislature has given, has decreased. It doesn't really matter how many member projects have increased, because those projects could be funded in agency budgets. They can be line items in so that's just, I mean, you're conflating, not you, but the argument about it is conflating it. Secondly, the only obligation of the legislature, the charge, is to what? Do a state budget.
Yeah.
And candidly, what more of a transparent process do you want than all these individual projects that have to be? And the forms aren't simple. They're not. And on the House side, the entity that's receiving the funding has to sign what's called an attestation form. They sign under penalty of perjury that, yep, this is what I'm going to use the money for. Guess what? When those projects are bid out at the local level, they go back to those pieces. I mean, it's transparent to me, so I don't buy that argument.
And let me remind, and I've said this many times, Lindsay, Jennifer, as a business owner, represents clients all throughout the state. And Jennifer will tell you, and she's right. I mean, my show, which is heard all throughout the state, is the problem you may have in South Florida is not indicative of what is happening in Northwest Florida, okay? Yeah. Where we don't have the rampant a cultural, you know, wars we may have in our schools. We don't have a lot of high rises where people are being priced out of their condos. We don't have the high amount of government in some of these areas, Jennifer, you know what I'm talking about, in Northwest Florida, that you have in Southwest Florida. Not
sure.
By the way, the voting population is night and day. Very conservative in Northwest Florida compared to South Florida. And I wonder, Jennifer, and I'll get to Lindsay in a second on this one, I want to, like, I know Brad Coker very well from Mason-Dixon polling.
He's great at what he does.
Brad, I know very practically almost family. I'll explain that. But Brad breaks it down by regions, like support for David Jolly or Byron Donalds, whoever's running for governor. I like that. And I'm going to see Brad soon. I want to see Brad do it by region. I would be very curious if you had to place the argument and saying, okay, which one or which part of the state would love to see more in the property taxes compared to other parts of the state. I'm not saying they wouldn't support it in Northwest Florida, Jennifer, but they don't have the high level of government spending that we see on the East Coast.
Correct. And I think it also, if you start to look at the fiscal analysis, the lack thereof, that would be helpful. I mean, everything we do has that, and any other constitutional amendment that goes on the ballot does have a financial impact statement. I think that is going to be very, very important, and who knows whether or not it's going to be done. I don't think it'll be done by a state entity, but
yeah. Lindsay, and I'd love having the debate what you consider essential. As Jennifer points out, the goal is just to pass the budget. And I think when, for example, hey, ALF facilities need attention. I'm with you on that. There's a partnership there compared to, oh, hey, I need a brand new park. And with all due respect, heavily, big time support fire and police in the military. But just because we're going to call it a local veterans park, then why can't the local city build it? Why do I need state money to build it? I think that's another debate. So I think there's an area of priorities. But I got to tell you something, Lindsay, that if we didn't touch the schools, so it's not really full property tax cuts. That I don't think is going to happen. But again, the determination whether or not, and I understand what Jennifer's saying that, well, we took it off, we're not going to touch fire and police. I got news for you. These mayors, Democratic mayors, and by the way, they're not all Democrats. A lot of Republicans are going to make these arguments. Well, it's still going to limit us. We still want to fund fire and police, but we're not going to have the same amount of money as beforehand. And now they're starting to admit, Lindsay, we might not be able to fund art programs. And what about, Lindsay, I can document to over 100 million plus, Jacksonville alone, but other cities that have spent money on brand new pools and brand new parks. And Jennifer and I talked about this before. This was all a boatload of garbage COVID money that came in that was non-reoccurring. Yep. And my question to these guys, what did you do with the money, Lindsay?
Right. Well, would you run your household like that? So you're getting this money and then it's going to go away in a certain amount of time. You wouldn't just expand your budget and keep spending that money, right? So it's just, it reminds me of when COVID happened, and remember the essential businesses that were open? Yeah. It was like Home Depot, liquor stores. I was like, wait a second, this is insane. Yeah. What are we even doing? Meanwhile, parks are closed. My kids couldn't go play. The beach was closed. The beach was closed. I literally got kicked out of the beach. I thought that the beach was open one day earlier. My girls and I, which I had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, we're walking down the beach. There's no one there. And I get a cop that comes up to me, hey, you can't be here. And I was like, oh my, this is insane. But I'm just saying, I think it's fear mongering. I think it's just hysteria. And I'm hoping that voters will wake up and realize you got to think through this and think critically on both sides, not just the left, but also the right too. And let's actually really determine what is going on and what the truth is.
Jennifer, Lindsay's got a good point there. Whether the schools are taken out, and they are, they're still going to make an argument it's going to hit education. They're going to find a way it's going to hit education. And by the way, it's interesting. Jay Collins' people calling me. Go figure that. And then my ears must be burning here, Jennifer. Anyway, I'm kidding right there. But the comments that you hear from, the Lieutenant Governor, Jay Collins, he supports it. Renner goes even a little bit further on his property tax. Byron says he supports it. Fishback, I don't know where all his stuff is on. But Jennifer, there's the opposition, and I get along with the League of Cities. I get along with the League of Counties. I don't have to agree with them on everything, but I think there's going to be more money on the opposition side campaigning than there is in favor. I'm just telling you on the surface. Okay, I may be wrong, but does it come across, knowing how voters are, that the argument that they're going to make is still fire and police are going to be touched? That's the argument. Does it get oversold, or do you think the opposite side might score points because, OMG, the fire department's not going to come out quicker? My ambulance. I don't buy into that, but there are some areas of the state that would buy into it. How do you forecast it now in the month of June?
Well, I think it's gonna be very clear in August in primaries, because these local governments who, folks that are running in the primaries are going to be talking about it. So you see who gets voted in or out, and then also in the general election. I think voters are gonna look at these local elected officials and say, "Are you telling the truth?" And it may not happen until the next election cycle that they say, "You know what you told me wasn't true." But I think that the scary part is going to be who pays for all of the communications out there about the amendment. So do local governments take my and your taxpayer dollars? At the end of the day, all the money all the money that the state has, all the money that local governments have, it's our money. I don't care. I want it to come back to where I live if I've paid it in. But they're not going to go. What are they going to do? Go raise money from private citizens? No,
Jennifer, we're getting the money? Hope, Florida. All right. So anyway, oh, come on. That was funny. I don't care who. Look, Jennifer, can I tell you something?
Yes.
I mean this. Lindsay and I have known each other for a long time, Jennifer as well. But every time Jennifer comes on, I'm like, why didn't I got to plagiarize off of her, Lindsay, because she just
She's so sharp.
No, she is. I mean,
I'm just thinking of random stuff. That's it. I'm filling in the gaps, Ed. Just filling in the
Jennifer's
gaps.
reaction, dude, is very priceless. I mean, I can tell you stories that she's covered. My phones have just absolutely blown up. And Jennifer wasn't trying to piss anybody off. She was just bringing up a point, whatever. But she just said something. And you bring up it's more of an inside baseball. Are we going to see tax dollars be used to oppose or I didn't even think about that.
I didn't either, but that they will. And there's definitely it's not going to be pro. It's going to be against if the cities are doing it.
Yeah.
That is a very good point. And
Lindsay,
that's
I
terrifying.
know your school hasn't done this, but Lindsay, I will tell you, years as a reporter, if they wanted to pass a bonding issue or promoting a school sales tax for the kids, I remember I covered it. I mean, it happened. I mean, I'm talking red counties here because there's always Republicans now supporting higher taxes than Democrats, where they would send a bag home with the kids, let's say right before the election. Hey, there's some cookies and blah, blah, blah. And there's a note for your parents. It must be. And by the way, some other information. And Jennifer, I swear to you, the Holy Bible, it was about, we need you to support the kids and support the tax increase.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
that has happened. It has not happened in my school, though. We are a 501c3, and we will not be doing that.
Jennifer, by the way, the next scheme, I know we got to save this for another time, but the next scheme that's going on is these tax extensions. Now, if you wanted to have an increase in the sales tax, it stays at a half-cent penny sales tax, and you extend it after the term is end, okay, that technically is not a tax increase. It's just extending the tax increase. You know what they're doing now? They're doing this with the millage rate. I want y'all follow me now, all you watching us. They're doing this on the millage rate. So let's say they passed a 5-year for teachers, for schools, to fund the arts program in your local public school. What they're doing now is you got taxed at that rate 5 years ago. So now the school districts and the proponents are saying it's not a new tax increase. It's just a tax extension. The problem, Jennifer, is it is a tax increase because now you're going to pay a higher amount based on the property values you had today compared to 5 years ago. And we're looking at the numbers here on the radio show and at FloridaDaily.com. It's in some areas an extra $500. We're talking medium income, $500 to a year. That doesn't include up to $1,000 or $1,500. I'm sitting here going, wait, the tax cut that you want, now you're going to pay for it in a sales property tax, a school property tax.
Right.
It defeats the purpose.
It is so complicated, and especially when local governments, the counties have to deal with, millage rates and setting millage rates. So what you're talking about is there was a start date of a tax and an end date. So the argument, again, if I were a local government elected official, I would say I'd start talking about it, or I'd talk about it before we pass it to say, this doesn't mean it's going to go away. We will have to make other decisions. But if you were the one that said, I will only vote for this if there is an end date in 3 years, well, you're not in a good spot. Right.
So, well, this is a good discussion. I know Lindsay's in your neck of the woods in Tallahassee all the time with the whole charter school stuff. Jennifer's got some great stories, man. Tallahassee. I go over and see her. Every time I go to Tallahassee, Jennifer always has a reason not to be there. But anyway,
I just do my gator chomp in Tallahassee.
Do you see that up there? You see that that spear right there? Do you see it? Just saying.
That's the reason why I want to check out the real office, not the one I got to, I'm joking. Jennifer Green from Liberty Partners, definitely one of my favorite. And I need to get Jennifer. Jennifer comes on me when we take the show on the road. She'll co-host. I should have her just host. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you should. I don't know, Ed. I can't cut people off like you do. You're too good. You know when to jump. You know when to jump in. You know what I'm saying, Lindsay? You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, Lindsay, and he knows how to be a big jerk
Lindsay,
if he
you
wants
want to close a deal and you got to be a little forceful with people. You take the mode of Jennifer Green. I've done that. That means I have to get in people's faces. I'm joking. Jennifer, I'm glad you came on it. Lindsay Randall. I just want to remind everybody, watch all of this. You can watch it on FloridaDaily.com or go to YouTube. This is where, everybody's watching us on the website, but go to our YouTube page, like the page, subscribe to it as well. And all of you, thanks so much for watching.
Great to see you. Good to see you, Lindsay.
You too, Jennifer.
Jennifer, you kicked it. Jennifer, I'll get with Adam on the whole